So I need to share this with you. I can guarantee you're going to be very surprised. How I spoke to a slave beyond the grave. I'll see you shortly. So boom, welcome back. My name's M. I'm from Kind Holistics, where we learn together and we grow together in the sight of God. So today I want to speak about this man. His name is Cesar Picton. Now, this gentleman spoke to me from beyond the grave. Stick with me with this and I'll explain a bit more. First of all, could you like, share and subscribe? Obviously, it helps me to do more content, and I'll explain why this guy is so important and why it has links to my other channel and why it's so important for me to record this video, which is very much way off base than what I normally talk about. So let me jump into it and let me get started. So first of all, as I said, this guy's called Cesar Picton. He was born roughly around early 17th century. He was brought to the UK in 1761, I believe, and he was age 6. He arrived here in just a sack, and he was sold into slavery. And he came from Senegal, which is on the west coast of Africa. We all know about the slave trade, so I won't go deep into that, but we all know it was a bad time and people were sold into various connotations and were treated brutally, thrown overboard. They were beaten, they were treated like animals. Some say their dogs were treated better than they were, and they were brutally, and obviously my ancestors go through that line as well. So let me speak about this guy, Cesar Picton. So first of all, the story is, for me, how I kind of linked with this gentleman. I didn't know who he was at first. When I was driving to work, I drove through Thames Ditton, where he lived or had a house. As I drove through, I saw this massive house. It's really prominent. It actually wasn't prominent to say it was big, to say it was like, I don't know, Hampton Court Palace or Buckingham Palace. It wasn't that big. It was just prominent. It really stood out for me. It stood out. It just had this weird feeling, like, come and investigate. Like, I was just drawn to it. I can't even explain it. I just knew it was on a spiritual vibe, and I'm feeling it now. It's in my solar plexus. It's really, 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 really strong. So anyway, I decided to go and research it a bit more. So why is this so important? So let me kind of diverse and talk about something slightly different, which is linked to this. I'm really into history, and I don't know, many people who know me like history, and I'm obsessed literally with blue plaques. So I decided to do a blue plaques channel. This is what I'm doing. So if you don't know what blue plaque is, a blue plaque is on this old building or old property, which would have names, who died and who lived there, so on and so forth. That would be dotted around the UK. I think there's roughly about 100 to 200 plaques, roughly. I might be wrong. But the channel I'm doing is based upon researching and kind of giving a rough history of who these individuals were. So bringing that actual plaque to life about that person or people even. That's about the channel. With Cesar, what was important was that, as I mentioned, he was sold into slavery, age of 6. He came here and he was just in a sack. So he arrives at the UK. He's going off to be sold, and there's a gentleman called Sir John Phillips. Now, Sir John Phillips is a wise and very powerful man. He was either the 6th or 4th baronet, and he was a member of Parliament. He had a property, basically had a castle in Wales. That's important. I'll come back to that. So when he saw Cesar, he was taken back by him and it was like, oh my gosh, like, I like this young boy, bought him and freed him, sent Cesar off to school to be educated as a gentleman and given him the name Cesar, which is power. Cesar, it means that someone who is authoritative. So, Julius Caesar, that was like a king. It's a king's name, Caesar. So he gave him the name Caesar. And then Picton was the name of John Philip's home or castle back in Wales. That's what I said about, remember what I just said earlier. So his name was Cesar Picton. So to be given the name of a stately home, an ancestral home for a slave was very good, very powerful, it was unheard of. We're talking about the 17th century. So anyway, why is it so important to me? As I went to research it and I just took pictures and I took pictures of the location and the building, got a name, and then I came back. And as I arrived home and I was doing the research, remember I didn't know who lived there, didn't see the plaque originally when I saw it when I drove by, so I took pictures when I was there, got the name, and then done other pictures as well because the other plaques dotted around Thames Ditton. So anyway, got home, looked at the guy's name, looked at his picture, boom, black guy turned up, slavery. And I was shocked. That's him talking to me beyond the grave. And even today, I'm not sure why I'm recording this or why he came first, but this is spirit using me. And obviously Cesar is a really prominent figure. So anyway, let me talk roughly again about what happened with Cesar. So Cesar, I'll leave the links to my other channel below anyway, but Cesar, when he became older, and obviously he was schooled to be a gentleman, he was a servant, a paid servant at the house in Kingston for Sir John Phillips. So he had an employment. And when he became a gentleman, the money he made, he decided to invest in his own business, which was to be a merchant. That's what you would do in them days. Kind of like if you was to be a YouTuber or a blogger in today, or dealing import and exports. But what Sir John Phillips wanted to do, what Cesar wanted to import was a precious piece of material, which everybody needed at the time, and it was coal. And my man was pretty good at it. He made a lot of money. And you never hear about him. I bet you didn't even know about this guy. I bet you never even learned this in history in school, because he was one of the main people of merchants who used to bring in coal, and he became very wealthy. So on the flip side of that, unfortunately, at the age of 34, a good friend, obviously he was a part of the family, the Phillips family. Lady Phillips dies, passed away. Cesar was cut up about it. But what was ironic and what was a surprise to everybody apart from obviously John was for the fact is that Cesar was left £100, which is probably roughly about £1 million in today's money. So what has this got to do with that house? He decides to buy the house in the middle of Thames Ditton, overlooking the square. Now, if you look at the square, if you ever go there, I do advise to visit. There's a nice little bakery thing on the corner there. You can sit outside and have your little coffee and your latte stuff there. It's beautiful. Anyway, the prominent square, it overlooks the prominent square, and it's the biggest. It's a white house which stands there. That is a statement. That is that he's saying, I am a king. And my name, Cesar. I am here. For a black man in the 17th century was amazing. There is more about him which is even more a miracle, which inspires me as well. The other thing as well is not far from down the road from where he lived is a place called the Ye Old Swan. Going back to the days of Henry VIII, they believe that's where he used to do his hunting from. Anyway, better than digressing. So Cesar lived at this place, this building, for roughly about 20 years. Let me quickly just speak about where he used to live. So when he lived with Phillips, Sir John Phillips, he lived in Kingston. It's still there today, and it's called Picton House. And I think it's now a form of entertainment place, so people can go there and hire it out. But that's where he was raised, and that was a family home, apart from the castle. So that was a London home for him, which isn't far from Hampton Court. So when he bought this house, he lived there from 1861 to 1836. And he passed away at the age of 81. I think again, yeah, well, what's so good about that? In the rough ages of anyone living in the 17th or 18th century was about 50. And these are like people who lived in the UK, not slaves that came here. So, yes, he had money, and even though he could have been susceptible to disease and so on, and other white wealthy people were susceptible to disease and did die from it. But the important thing, what really touched me when I was reading it, is that he lived to 1880. He lived into the age of 81, which I believe was roughly about the same age as my dad when he passed. But I believe so. Yeah. Anyway, so what was really prominent for me was that him passing, or him meeting the house, and then me telling the story, and then me realizing what prominent figure was in the community and also a part of the UK, for me, was something I wanted to share on this channel and also on my other channel. So I leave the links below to the the blue plaque channel, and there's only one on this. I'm going to start generating more as I start moving around London and start recording. So I look forward to seeing you soon, and stay blessed and stay safe. Namaste.